Hello, hello, hello. It's good to see you all. Um, Welcome back to those of you who've watched before. Hi to you who might be catching the replay. I am Dr. Julie Allig, aka the Data Diva. And if you're watching live, thank you for joining me today late on a Friday afternoon. I'm here every Friday, usually at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific, except for the days like today when I'm teaching down in Boston. And because of my teaching schedule, I needed to push this until later in the afternoon. So you can be watching this over on LinkedIn. I'm also streaming this over to my YouTube channel, and you can always catch the replays over there also. Today, I wanted to talk about how much is enough. So when we're talking about analyzing data and we think about, how much data do I actually need in order to be doing any kind of analysis that's going to make any sense, much less anything that might reach any kind of level of statistical significance. And this is a question I get asked a lot. Usually when I'm out talking with colleagues, talking with prospective clients, people I'm just giving some help to, the way that this question is framed is usually, Jules, this all sounds great. I'm sure you're really good at analyzing your data, but, we just don't have enough data for you to analyze. We're just a smallish middle market company. We don't have any big data or anything. So this same idea came up recently with my students who I'm teaching down here in Boston. I'm teaching some master's students, and they were asking what I realized was really pretty much the exact same question, which was, Professor, how much data is enough in order for us to be able to do this kind of analysis we're talking about, in order for us to make recommendations that, as I put it, recommendations that hold water or that aren't dog food or something like that. Just how much is enough? And the short answer is, and this is what I talked about with my students, the short answer is if you've got 30 data points, you're probably just fine. You're golden. You can go ahead and do your analysis without much worry about whether or not it's actually going to stand up to the statistical tests or anything. The technical background about for why I say this and why I'm not the only one to say this is that this is all due to the central limit theorem. And that's actually what I was going over with my students recently. And that's the idea that as your population or your data set increases, you have more and more accuracy. But even so, you still can draw upon that even when you've got small samples. So the non-technical background is once you've got around 30, you're fine. The statistical tests you're going to be running, they're going to be okay. They're going to be fine. You still need to, not just accept, but question right? You still have to put things, up against your gut, make sure that things are making sense, making logical sense, reasonable sense. But you're probably going to be just fine with about 30. Now, notice that number, 30. And what got me thinking about this even more and why I wanted to bring this up with you all is because as I'm recording this, it's Friday, February 2nd, which means we just finished up January 2024, which means there were, give or take, 30 days in January. And so if you were collecting data most days in January, then right now you've got enough to actually be able to start doing some of these analyses. You've got enough data to start asking those questions and then using things like some of these statistical tools to actually start finding answers. And once you're able to do that, then you're able to start making recommendations and you're able to start making decisions based on your data. So let's say you're a restaurant, and you all probably know by now, I live in New England. I live north of Boston in New Hampshire. If you're a restaurant, if you've been collecting some data on the daily sales in your restaurant, maybe you've also been collecting data on whether or not it was snowing or not on each day. So each day you've got a sales total, and of course you're also not just looking at your sales, you're calculating your profit, right? Yes. And so you're also looking at, did we get a lot of precipitation? Did we have snow or not? So then once you've got 30 days, let's say you're open 5 days a week, you've got 20 pieces of data. So maybe you need to do a week or so into February to really have some good data to start making decisions. Then you can start looking at, what does that look like? Are snowy days more likely to be high profit or low profit days? If you're fine dining and your customers, you don't have any kind of takeout options or carry out options or delivery options, then maybe those really snowy days were low profit. If you did something like many restaurants did during the pandemic, and they ramped up their carry out, ramped up their delivery options, then maybe snowy days were the ones that were your highest profit. And then you're off to the races. Then you can start looking at things like what kinds of customers are we more likely to have on snowy days than regular days, which here in New England, a regular day looks kind of like this. Actually, it's not blue outside. It's gray and snowy and starting to get dark right now. But what kind of customers do you have on one versus the other day? And then what you can start doing is using that to forecast out. And so in a climate like New England, being able to look at, okay, in February, on average, how many snowy days have we got? And if I know that my snowy days are lower profit, let's say again, you're fine dining, you don't have serious delivery options or takeout options, then knowing that, what is my profit likely to be in February? What about March? If it's less than what I had been planning on for all of 2024, right? If it was less than I had been planning on for quarter one of 24, what are we going to do to make that up? And that's where starting to make decisions like that can really, really supercharge your business. Because think of it this way, if you know that your profits go down on snowy days, and you know that here in New England, we're going to have a lot of snowy days now in January, February, March, you're going to be coming in at a deficit. How are we going to plug that? Maybe that is a reason for you to start thinking about that takeout option or delivery option, right? Maybe it makes sense to invest whatever you might need. If you've got capital expenditure, if you've got staff training expenditure, if you need to bring on a couple of other line cooks or something like that in order to boost that, maybe those are going to be offset by the amount of profit you're going to be able to bring in. So do you see how just starting with looking at daily, keeping track of things for 30 days, 25 days, 30 days or so, and then simply looking at whether or not it snowed or not. That's a simple example, but I think it's a powerful example. You can apply that to a lot of different kinds of businesses. You don't need to be a restaurant. You can apply it to different sorts of businesses in different industries with different customer profiles. You can talk about something like the weather, how the weather impacts it, or interest rates. How does that impact our clients? Or new housing coming on the market. How does that impact us? That sort of thing. And right there, you can start really making a difference in what you are projecting out, in your ability to project out. And then it's going to be so much more clear to you where you've got some gaps. And so you've got some advance notice of how to plug those gaps. So today, short and sweet, because as I'm looking over my shoulder here, that's I-93, which is what I need to take to get home, and it's starting to be very backed up. So I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to call it a week. I hope you've had a good week. And I hope January was a good month for you. However you measure that in your business, maybe in your book of business, I hope it was a good one for you. And a reminder that it doesn't take big data, thousands and thousands or millions of rows of data. It doesn't take that to really be able to understand what's going on, to see what some of the trends are in your business, and to do something about it that has a positive impact on your business. Think 30 days in January. Well, there were 31. We got an extra one in February this year. We've got 29 in February. So if for whatever reason you were too busy wrapping up 2023 in January, think about February. Track things every day. Track things once a week. Track things a couple times a week. Try to get to around 30. And then you'll be able to really start looking at your data and making the sorts of decisions that are going to build you a stronger, more lucrative business. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for joining much later than my usual 3 p.m. Again, the days I'm teaching, this will be a little bit later. If you have questions or comments, leave them below. I double check all the time Would love to hear what you think. Would love to hear if there are any questions you have that I haven't talked about that you'd like to see me talk about. And if you're someone who hasn't done any forecasting for your business this year, you're not quite sure how to get started, check out my short course, Fearless Forecasting. I'll walk you through the basics of generating some forecasts for your business. No muss, no fuss, just some basics here so you can start getting a handle on what's actually going on. You can find more information and sign up at my website, www.jlaanalytics.com/fearless_forecasting. And I'll have more information down below in the show notes. All right, until next week, go forth and analyze.